Hello guys, this is Wise Nerd, and here on Nerd on a Quest, today I'm going to talk about Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, and more specifically, The Force Awakens, because I'm planning to make a 3-part video, so if you are interested in the topic then subscribe to my channel for more nerdy content. So now, let's begin. Star Wars The Force Awakens, the first movie of the sequel trilogy that was planned by Disney after George Lucas was cut off trick and made a deal with the mouse. So, the plot of this movie is that there is a new threat in the galaxy called the First Order, and the rebellion ripoff called the Resistance. They're trying to find Luke to end the First Order. So in this case, there are two militias, the First Order and the Resistance. One is led by Leia Organa and the other is led by Supreme Leader Snoke and Kylo Ren. In the movie, Rey is our main protagonist, who is a Force-sensitive girl who lives in Jakku. Also we have Finn, a deserter from the First Order, and finally Poe Dameron, the best pilot in the Resistance. These characters go through a long journey to find their place in the fight against this new evil, and they win by blowing up the Star Killer base, which is a bigger Death Star, and they find Luke. Also Han Solo dies in the movie, and we find out that Kylo Ren is Han and Leia's son. So basically that's the whole movie. But we all know what happened in the movie, so I'm not here to talk about that. So furthermore, I have to say that when I watched this movie back in 2015, I thought that it was a good movie. I liked all the references and I was really hyped with all the fan service that this movie had. But I must say that when I watched the movie again for the purposes of making this video, I still liked the movie, even though I paid attention to the way it was written and every detail in the story to make this analysis complex and geeky. So I started thinking why I liked this movie, and I found that the main reason is because it has a lot of fan service and it reminds me of Episode 4. But this one has cooler effects and the added nostalgia of watching my heroes such as Han and Leia back on screen, and when I realized that, I really started thinking about the mistakes that the movie made and that were overshadowed by the nostalgia. The first mistake I found was that the movie relied a lot on nostalgia and the storyline. Sorry, I must say nostalgia because it's kinda the main reason I'm making this video. So, it plays mostly as a ripoff of Episode 4. Basically, we have the same things repeating in the movie. And even though it brings new characters, this movie does not feel original and fresh. I think that even The Phantom Menace was more daring regarding on how to start a new Star Wars trilogy. Also, I feel tricked because I thought that Episode 4 was more different, but actually there are many similarities in both movies. The second mistake I found was the characters and their respective character arcs. So let's begin with Rey's. Even though I don't hate Rey, I have found her character kinda lame at some points, and I think that in the whole movie I didn't like her journey. Maybe because I love meaningful dialogues and most of her dialogues are lame or interrupted because the plot needed to move on. So every time in the movie she was going to have some sort of meaningful conversation, there's always an explosion and all of the conversations are forgotten. I didn't like her purpose or the reason why she's involved in the conflict because it feels forced and it's like she's driven by the consequences of other people's actions. Also, I like the idea of female heroes like Korra being the Avatar alluring Voltron. In Star Wars we have Ahsoka, and each of these characters embody brave women with a purpose in life to do good, well determined and inspiring. But Rey has an arc where all of her actions are pointless, and I think that is why Rey's fight with Kylo was the part that all fans objected in the movie, because all of her journey as a character doesn't show the necessary growth to actually defeat a skilled warrior trained by Luke Skywalker and Snoke. Another character arc that I didn't like was Kylo Ren's, because he's a character that embodies the same conflict as Darth Vader. without bringing everything new except a cool lightsaber and his tantrums. But aside from that, I think that the whole execution of him being a powerful enemy and his arc of becoming a full villain is lame. Except for the part when he kills Han Solo, because here his character arc is completed as this monster who killed his own father and succumbed to darkness. Also, it reminded me of Oedipus, and I thought, well, maybe they are going for that kind of arc. And after the battle with Rey, where he's injured in the face, I thought, well, after all, he may grow in the next movie and become a memorable villain. The third character arc is Finn's, so I love this character from the beginning. And in this movie, all of his journey was really interesting because we have this stormtrooper who decides to run away from the bad guys or the First Order, and personally I love how we can appreciate the fact that stormtroopers have feelings and they're actually brainwashed into being merciless machines. So in a way, his character was the only risky card that the movie had, and I loved the execution when it came to his conflict of running away or belonging to the resistance. I have to say that his fight with Kylo, like him losing against Kylo, was the right choice, and I think that Rey didn't have to fight against Kylo when we have Finn who already fought and lost. So he's ultimately the hero in the movie, but that didn't happen, and I still love his arc in this movie. Finally, there's one last thing that I didn't like about this movie, which is the justification, or why do we need another Star Wars trilogy? What is the purpose of telling this story? What message are you trying to transmit? So all of these are important questions to make a story, but here the story is just made for fan service and the revival of the franchise, only for money. There's no need to tell this story, there's no why. Simon Sinek says that most products triumph in sales when there's a why or a purpose for its existence. You can watch a whole video about it on TED, and I'm not sponsored by TED, but I really like that talk, and I think that The Force Awakens lacks purpose and meaning, with pointless characters, except Finn, that resemble the original trilogy, and it is only rescued by one important original character and nostalgia. So, thank you so much for watching this video. I will upload a video about The Last Jedi soon, and subscribe to become a legendary nerd here on Nerds on a Quest. Farewell, fellas!